Well, one of the things we know from the expertise development literature is it's really hard when you're working on a new skill or part of your practice to really know how it's going. And part of it is because we're using so much more of our mental energy during the act phase of the sprint. We've come out of autopilot. We're trying to make an adjustment to our craft. And often that means that because we're not using our sort of default instructional habits, we're spending a lot of kind of mental energy and focus trying to make some adjustments to what we're doing. So it's really helpful to have some non judgmental outside eyes to help us have a better sense of what we're doing and how it's going. In the deliberate practice literature, they really prioritize not just focusing on intensive kind of areas of practice, not just making sure you're working on a really well defined improvement goal, but also seeking out and responding to high quality feedback. Well, in your Teach First model, you've got a wonderful opportunity during the ACT period, which will last about 4 to 6 weeks, to draw on both expert observation and peer observation during this period. Now, this is not in any way a lesson evaluation. This is not in any way a time to try to make sure we're showing the practice exactly how it is and getting an A plus. Actually, there's no rating, there's no marking, there's no judgment. In fact, all of us during the period of our act where we're trying new ideas out in the classroom should expect it to be a little bit clunky, to not really feel it being in flow. And actually, what we're looking for is to get advice early on in the process, not when we've got it all perfect and we've got the perfect thing to show. We want people to give us feedback early in the process because that's exactly where we're going to get the most benefit from making some small tweaks, talking about where we're stuck, and making some adjustments so that we can fast track our pathway to getting this evidence informed strategy working within our repertoire and the challenges of our classroom. So there's two key opportunities for observation here. One of them is particularly working with our sprint coach, and that'll often in your context, I'm sure, be an ILTP educator. And here, the idea is that we should turn to and structure an observation opportunity, especially with someone who's got a deep understanding of this practice and probably has the ability to demonstrate it in their own work as well. So we really want to encourage you to make the most of being proactive, of drawing on those capabilities of sprint coaches and ILTP educators. I want to say none of these people will at all feel like they've got it all together. And some of them will be feeling like, oh, who am I to walk into this person's classroom? They deeply respect you and they know they've got a huge amount to learn from you. And that's just it. It is a two-way learning opportunity for everyone involved in any observation. These observations might just be 5 to 10 minutes, and it's really important that those observations only focus on the key practice that we are trying to develop. There's nothing more frustrating than inviting someone in to come and give you feedback about something you're working on, and then they say, oh, I also noticed this, and this, and you think, oh, well, thanks for that, but actually you've just overloaded me on things I wasn't even at this stage trying to work on. So, what we want to ask people to do is to be quite proactive at both setting up that opportunity for coaching with your sprint coach or with an ILTP educator, but then also open up with a real sense of being vulnerable with a peer observation partner. Now, here, the peer you work with may not necessarily be a core expert in this area. They may not necessarily, in their own craft, be able to demonstrate it consistently. That's okay. But in this ACT period, it's important for us to work together with other colleagues, probably within our practice groups, to have a chance to see each other trialing and experimenting with this craft, and therefore also to be able to debrief a little bit about what's working and what feels a bit clunky, and perhaps what are the reasons why sometimes you feel like just going back to your default practice rather than trying to pursue the practice that you know the evidence suggests will be more effective over time, even though you might be in a bit of an implementation dip at the moment. I think it's important here as we talk about observations to also re-emphasize the conversation we've started on psychological safety. It's on each of us, teachers, peer observed partners, sprint coaches, ILTP educators, to make a deliberate effort during this front end time of learning how to do this practice improvement work together to really cultivate the psychological safety. Being tuned in to the fact that all of us feel a little bit vulnerable and a little bit kind of unsure about having other people come in and talk about our craft. And that's absolutely natural. And so the quicker we can all send those human cues to each other that, hey, I make mistakes and this doesn't all work for me all the time. That actually I tried this out and it hasn't quite landed the way I hoped. And do you have any advice for me? To offer some alternatives of some adjustments. We need it to be safe now within our groups to ask for help, to admit a mistake, and to offer an alternative. And for all of us, it's our job not just to tune into the current level of psychological safety, but to actually contribute to elevating that along the way. And so for all of us, I think as we think about observations, both those from your sprint coaches and ILTP educators, those from our peers, the number one thing to be getting right, other than just actually getting into the habits and rhythms of doing these and following the guidance that the system's provided you, is to send those signals to each other that this is safe, that we're all learning here, that none of us have got this all sorted, but together we're going to accelerate much more if we can have eyes on our craft, if we can get some a sense from some external eyes about what they're seeing, what's landing, and where there might be some opportunities for some refinements to help us to be more successful. So as we're talking together today, there might well be opportunities during term 4 to actually, if you haven't had a chance yet, to start to bring in this level of observation, even on the sprint you were doing in term 3. Now would be a great time to get some peer observation or a coach observation on how you're going at trying to integrate and sustain that piece of work that you were doing. And then, of course, into term 1, there'll be this really core opportunity to make sure that we normalize these observation approaches as a core part of the way that we learn and develop through the act phase of our sprint process.